city leaders sounding the alarm on the critical police shortage.
Until we have a better recruiting in the city, we're going to always have problems in terms of having enough officers to patrol.
The startling admission on why things might not get better anytime soon. A volunteer crime watch group says Safe Streets is not doing enough to protect the city.
It shows that there is a clear failure in the system.
Why they think the mass shooting could have been stopped. City residents escalating their fight against BGE, the agency they're calling to step in to protect their homes from new gas regulators.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
And we begin with a live traffic breaking news. A section of southbound 95 is shut down right now because of a trash fire. This is happening between Dundalk Avenue and exit 57. We understand there is a trash truck on fire in Canton. We have a crew headed to the scene, but as you can see, causing lots of traffic issues right now on 95. We'll bring you more live pictures once we get to the scene.
Fox 45 News has obtained charging documents after 30 people were shot over a week ago in South Baltimore. Police say a 17-year-old facing weapons charges may have played a key role in the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Police still not identifying any suspects in the actual shooting that left 2 people dead, another 28 injured. 18-year-old Alaya Gonzalez and 20-year-old Kailas Fagbemi were both killed in the shooting. Tonight, members of the community are set to gather for a candlelight vigil to remember Fagbemi. Mackenzie Frost leads us off with the charging documents. Mackenzie?
Well, Mary, the details indicate police believe there were multiple shooting scenes and within the Brooklyn Homes community. In the documents, detectives say when the 17-year-old pulled out what appears to be a weapon from his backpack, one shooting may have triggered several others. Broken candles in the grass serve as a small reminder.
Discharging a firearm, 815 Arundel Court. People shooting and fighting at the location. Anonymous caller.
Of the mass shooting on the 800 block of Gretna Court. Emerging now, new details about the investigation from court documents obtained by Fox 45 News. Detectives say multiple CCTV cameras captured the 17-year-old now facing 5 misdemeanor weapons charges, showing up to the Brooklyn Day party around 7:15 Saturday evening with a white and gray backpack. Adding, the teen was seen on video wearing the same clothing he says he was wearing when he got shot in the leg. Police relying on this widely circulated social media video, seemingly showing the 17-year-old pulling out what looks like a gun from his backpack, writing that when the teen pulled out the weapon from his backpack, it, quote, would cause substantial fear in a reasonable person. And the initial shooting incited additional shootings within the Brooklyn Homes community. Meanwhile, the teen's attorney, Michael Klingscale, pushes back on the narrative described by police, noting the weapon has not been recovered.
They're holding him for gun charges when we allege that what this young man had was an Orbeez gun. An Orbeez gun is a toy. If you haven't recovered anything and the young man says it's a toy, what is it?
Police trying to connect 6.223 caliber bullet casings found to the teen. The casings found in a pool of blood, according to the documents, in an area where the teen described he was shot. Detectives writing, the same weapon was taken out of his backpack is capable of firing the same caliber bullets.
They said that these .223 caliber bullets could have come from a weapon similar to what the young man had, but the police don't have this. So what are they talking about?
Police pushing for riot charges in the court documents, though none have been brought against the teen. But all of the charges he is facing, including possession of an assault weapon, are misdemeanor offenses. Now, it's unclear if this will stay within the juvenile criminal justice system or be waived up to the adult system. And so far, no one else has been arrested or charged connected to this incident. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Now, Fox 45 News is demanding answers from Monzi and Safe Streets about why workers left the Brooklyn Day event. Monzi says the communication policy about notifying other agencies about potential threats is being reviewed, though it's unclear when or if the policy will change. We sent questions to Monzi asking, has the communication policy been changed? If so, where are Safe Streets workers required to do moving forward, or what are they required to do moving forward? If not, what's the timeline for change? And finally, will Safe Streets workers be required to stay at community events longer in the future? Again, no answers. We've asked what time those Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day event and what time they left. City leaders have ignored our questions.
What happened to the procedures and the protocols to shut this thing down?
A group working to reduce violence in Baltimore City speaking out after the mass shooting in Brooklyn. They're calling it a system failure, and they're demanding answers from the city's flagship violence intervention program, Safe Streets. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker joins us live in Baltimore with their concerns tonight. Maxine?
Well, Mary, the Baltimore Guardian Angels, led by Marcus Strider Dent, have been working to reduce violence in communities throughout Baltimore riddled by crime for nearly 2 decades. And tonight they have a lot of questions about what happened at that Brooklyn shooting, something they think could have been avoided if the right protocols had been in place. Now, Strider is speaking out on what he's calling a system failure, from City Hall to police to the city's violence intervention program, Safe Streets. Now, Fox 45 confirmed that 4 Safe Streets workers were at Brooklyn Day before that shooting occurred, de-escalating a number of conflicts. But we're told Monzi didn't relay any of the information to police, despite reports of numerous armed individuals there on the scene. Strider says there's simply no excuse for the lack of communication.
You can't have people with guns and knives and stuff and not tell the police, especially when you are funded to help with this. That's what you're doing. You're the flagship group. How can you not make a phone call and say, hey, this is going on?
Monzi says they are now reviewing their policies and assessing their escalation techniques following that shooting in Brooklyn. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. On Thursday, Baltimore Police, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and the Department of Housing will all be in front of the City Council. The City Council is calling a hearing on what led up to the massive unauthorized block party, while also looking for answers on what some are calling massive failures from Monzi and the police department before the party turned violent.
Why was there no police presence on the scene? Why did we not know about the event in advance? Who knew about the event in advance?
The council also wanting to know why Safe Streets workers didn't tell police about potential threats at the party.
Baltimore.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Well, a new report from the Baltimore City Inspector General found a Department of Transportation employee spent time in Horseshoe Casino while they were supposed to be working. That employee admitted they did spend time with a family member in the casino but didn't gamble. The report says it's not clear whether the employee gambled while on the clock or not. The IG also investigated claims of time fraud and preferential treatment from management but found no evidence of those claims.
The Georgia grand jury handling potential indictments against former President Donald Trump has been selected and sworn in. It took 3 hours to choose the Atlanta area panel. The former president is accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in that state. The investigation began over 2 years ago when Trump was heard in an audio recording asking the Georgia Secretary of State to find more votes and win him the election. The new grand jury will decide if Trump faces charges.
Well, Trump and his team have unveiled a new legal strategy that could affect his chance of returning to the White House. They're asking a judge to postpone the case until after the election. Sinclair's chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman, takes a look at how these new efforts could play out on the 2024 campaign trail.
The boxes that could upend an election, with Donald Trump facing 37 felony charges for allegedly taking classified or top secret documents and lying to investigators. His legal team now requesting the trial be delayed until after the presidential election, more than a year later than prosecutors want.
If I weren't leading in the polls by so much, they wouldn't be indicting me.
Further, Trump's attorneys insist proceeding during an election will create extraordinary challenges in the jury selection process and limit the defendant's ability to secure a fair and impartial adjudication. A potential delay presenting new hypotheticals. If elected president again, could Trump try to use his powers to shelve the case or even self-pardon?
He could ask his attorney general to fire the special counsel and to end the prosecution. And there's a debate in legal circles whether a president can pardon him or herself. It came up when President Nixon was president, and there were discussions by legal scholars. I think it's uncertain.
Trump is hardly the only politician to claim an investigation could ruin their election. Hillary Clinton long suggested the FBI investigation into her personal server and thousands of deleted emails played a major role in her loss.
The reason why I believe we lost were the intervening events in the last 10 days. You know, if the election had been on October 27th, I'd be your president.
And so that's going to be a challenge for any prosecutor, any defense attorney, any judge to make sure that they give the perception, at least, that politics is not involved.
The voting public seems anxious to get it over with. Nearly 2/3 of those recently surveyed want Trump to be tried before the general election, including 46% of Republicans who were asked. That decision and possible election implications now in the hands of a judge. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
We got some breaking news to report to you at the top of the show. Remember, we told you about this trash truck fire. This is a live look right now. You can see that Peterbilt sign. That's a Peterbilt company right over there. We're looking at southeast Baltimore where this happened. This is creating a massive headache right now on the highway in Baltimore. But police and firefighters are trying to get a handle on it. But you can look, if you see at the top of your middle of your screen, smoke is still coming from that trash truck, though it looks like they've knocked down the best part of the fire right there.
And again, this is on a section of southbound 95 shut down right now because of all this. It's happening between Dundalk Avenue and exit 57, right near Canton. So it's right in there. And we see an ambulance on scene as well as some fire equipment as they try to put out this fire, which it looks like they have, although you still see some black smoke.
Yep. All right. Fox 45 is going to stay on the scene and continue to follow this story, and we'll bring you any new information once we get it. Well, communities across the Northeast are cleaning up and recovering after days of rain flooded some states. Parts of Vermont, New York, Connecticut, and even Pennsylvania got at least a half a foot of rain. And let's take a live look at the Inner Harbor and conditions right now. Not bad. We're not dealing with any rain here we're in the middle of an air quality alert.
That's right. The code orange means that high-risk groups should be careful and consider wearing a mask if they do have to go outside. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here now with the very latest on the forecast. The sun is strong out there today.
Yeah, you know, Kai, Mary, that's kind of the worst thing of the day is that air quality potential that you're going to be dealing with those sensitive groups, those that have pre-existing respiratory issues, as well as the very young, the elderly. Those folks, again, do have to spend some extra time inside and limit those outdoor activities. Outside of that, in this orange area, which actually it looks like maybe tomorrow we may have another code orange air quality alert. Outside of that, the weather's really nice. It is hot, 90 degrees. Winds out of the west-northwest at 7 miles an hour, but look at that humidity. 34%, and the dew point at 58 degrees. That clear, beautiful sky on the Toyota Ishida Harbor Skycam. That dew point is an important number this afternoon. You may ask why. It's because of this. Take a look at the temperatures now. 90 here in Baltimore, 90 degrees at Laurel, 91 at Westminster, 91 at Frederick, and 91 at Stevensville. This potentially could feel absolutely awful if you had the extra humidity or the higher dew point. But with the low dew point, actually last hour, the 90 that we have actually felt like 88 here in Baltimore. The heat index was a little lower than the actual temperature. Right now, it's at the actual temperature, 90 degrees. So, again, it's not the oppressive feel, but it is that kind of desert hot outside right now. 91 degrees at Cockeysville, 90 at Westminster, 91 at Laurel, and 91 at Stevensville. So if you are outside and you do have to do the strenuous activities, you do want to make sure that you stay nice and hydrated. This stuff can really kind of sneak up on you, especially if you're out there in the sun. HD radar showing our next weather maker off to the north, Detroit, Hamilton, Ontario, and Chicago. It's going to have a few iterations off to our north before it begins moving south. So we got a couple of days of this same kind of hot weather, and actually tomorrow also the dry weather. Humidity will begin to come back, I think, on Thursday, and then these thunderstorms. You can see here, again, it kind of reforms off into the Great Lakes, but then by Thursday, starting to sweep southbound, and that's when we add humidity and the shower and storm risk into the forecast. Now, out in the tropics, I haven't shown you the tropics map in a while because there just hasn't been much, but there is a low chance of development, and eventually 7 days, maybe a moderate chance of development near Bermuda, but that's going to be moving east. And outside of that, where we usually see our hurricanes form this time of year, we got a lot of what we call Saharan dust. This actually does come off the Saharan desert. All this brown is a map of that Saharan dust, and it continues to roll its way over the Caribbean. This stuff is bad for hurricanes. So that little system that's to the north, that's going to be north of that band of dust and eventually moves out into the open waters and diminishes. But anything else is going to have a hard time forming, at least for now. So the future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning, it looks like we settle down into the comfortable 60s near 70 after the hot day today by about 6 a.m. 8 a.m. we're into the 70s, and another day a lot like today for tomorrow as we make it into the 90 to 95 range for tomorrow afternoon. We're going to officially go with a high of about 95 on Wednesday. That's a hot day, but it won't be too humid. Turns a lot more oppressive on Wednesday, though. Maybe a late thunderstorm with that next weather maker, 95, 92 on Friday. And look at this. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all highs in the 90s. So that is another 7 straight days of 90+. And that humidity becomes torrid Thursday and beyond. So enjoy what we got while we got it, because we're going to have an all-out heat wave once again in the next several days.
Jonathan, thanks. A group of more than 400 Baltimore residents calling for a city agency to take action and protect their homes. The latest developments in the battle over gas regulators. The O's are off tonight, but 4 of them could still take the field during the All-Star Game. What you can expect to see right here on Fox 45 tonight. And we are back with live pictures from T-Mobile Park in Seattle. Baseball fans have had their eyes on the Emerald City for this year's All-Star Week. And for the first time in 7 years, the Orioles are representing in a big way. Morgan Atson joins us now with the excitement ahead of tonight. Morgan.
Hey, Mary. Yeah, there's no All-Star break for multiple Orioles. Tonight, Adley Rutschman and O's company go to work in the MLB All-Star Game, the most Orioles on this national stage since 2016. Also, their last postseason appearance. Austin Hayes and then relievers Yennier Cano and Felix Bautista looking to close out an AL win. Rutschman will be coming off the bench for the American League and maybe catching for his teammates. The first-time All-Star is aware in his first full season. This trip is special, especially for the Oregon native being so close to home.
You know, I grew up coming here. This was the first and only ballpark I had been to growing up. So it just means so much. I remember sitting up in the third deck over in right field, watching the game, watching Adrian Beltre hit an opposite field home run like it was yesterday. But just being here means the world.
Austin Hayes has moved into the starting lineup for tonight. He is batting seventh and starting in center field for the American League. All four Birds are first-time All-Stars. All but Hayes are just in their second season in the Bigs.
Morgan, thanks. And take a look at this. Adley Rutschman showing off during the home run derby last night. The O-Star catcher switch hitting during the event. After changing to hit righty, he hit homers on all but one of his swings, all with his dad throwing out the pitches. He finished with 27 home runs. Unfortunately, he just fell short of advancing, but his performance still something to celebrate for O's fans. And take another look from T-Mobile Park in Seattle, where the excitement is going down tonight. Coverage of tonight's All-Star Game kicks off at 7. You can watch it right here on Fox 45. Don't forget to tune in to Fox 45 News at 10 after the game.
We really are at a breaking point where we're going to need all of our partners together to address this.
Baltimore's losing another grocery store, possibly. Why some say it's because of crime. Another 3 teens shot in a 24-hour stretch, the latest on the crime crisis in Baltimore. And a group of Baltimore residents likening BGE to a cartel, the latest in their fight for the right to say no to BGE work in their homes and neighborhoods.
BG&E is operating like a Baltimore City gang, like a cartel that thinks that the rules don't apply to them.
That charge today from the attorney representing hundreds of Baltimore City residents in a class action lawsuit against BGE.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live as another arm of city government is now forced to address the controversial issue of external gas regulators. Amy?
Yeah, Mary, that group that's tasked with preserving Baltimore City's historic homes and neighborhoods appearing today to publicly discuss this topic for the first time since early 2022. That group, CHAP, the city's Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, just the latest group to address this flashpoint over BGE's external gas regulators. BGE says these regulators are to improve customer and community safety, but right now that utility work is halted by a court injunction. Ultimately today, Baltimore's Historic Preservation Board said it's up to the Maryland Public Service Commission, which regulates BGE, to decide how safety factors into this ongoing debate. CHAP said that its jurisdiction, however, is to protect and advocate for the historic character here in Baltimore, saying it will schedule a public hearing of its own to decide how to move forward and protect historic homes and neighborhoods.
Of course, we know what the historic preservation argument is. These things detract from the historic character.
We aren't in charge of safety, but I think that we do have the ability to support the public discourse on this, right? About elevating, getting BGE to the table in these historic districts.
Now, just a few dates to share as this debate over gas regulators continues. Tomorrow evening, July 12th, Baltimore City Council will hold a public hearing over these external gas regulators. August 15th, the Maryland Public Service Commission, which regulates BGE, will hold its own hearing about these gas regulators. And then on September 5th, that's when the class action lawsuit against BGE will be back in front of a judge. Right now, we don't know when CHAP, that board that oversees the historic properties and neighborhoods in Baltimore, will be scheduling its own hearing to discuss and get community input about these external regulators, though they did say they'd like to schedule it in about 30 days. We're live in Baltimore. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. BGE has seen its share of backlash this year in Baltimore. Earlier this year, the city struck a new deal with the company over the city's conduit system. Two members of the Board of Estimates for Baltimore, Nick Mosby, the council president, and Comptroller Bill Henry, tried to stop that vote. Mayor Brandon Scott went through with the deal without their approval. 2 days after the mayor approved it, BGE requested rate hikes for each year of the contract, increasing the average bill a little more than $10 a month. The Maryland Public Service Commission would have to approve that. Fox 45 News will keep you updated on the fight between BGE and Baltimore residents over gas regulators. Get the latest on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
Police announcing an arrest in a Northeast Baltimore murder. 56-year-old Neil Cole-L is charged with shooting and killing a 52-year-old woman in Clifton Park Terrace Saturday. According to police, the shooting happened just after 5 Saturday night. The victim was rushed to the hospital but did not survive.
Multiple people are shot across the city overnight. Police responded to a shooting on Pennsylvania Avenue in northwest Baltimore before 3 this morning, where a man was shot in the head. We're told he was pronounced dead at the scene.
Just hours earlier, a 17-year-old was shot in the leg. Police say the teen walked to the hospital just before 11 last night. Investigators still have not determined exactly where he was shot.
That 17-year-old was one of at least 3 teens shot yesterday. Another 17-year-old and a 15-year-old were both hurt in separate shootings in East Baltimore. The 17-year-old was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Anyone who has information on any of these shootings should contact Baltimore police.
Well, according to police, 352 people have survived being shot in the city this year. 149 have been killed. While those numbers are down from last year, there are growing concerns over youth crime as well as robberies impacting local businesses.
Another grocery store is closing a Baltimore location. Lidl will be closing its South Baltimore location this Friday. The store located in Brooklyn neighborhood. The company has yet to indicate why it's closing, but insiders say theft has a lot to do with it. We spoke with shoppers who say they see shoplifting all the time, but rarely see anyone questioned about it.
You know, they put those cameras up over top of where you check out,
And people just, you know, they just walk through where the registers are and just walk right by sometimes.
I mean, there's a lot of addicts around here, so with addicts comes boosting. You know, they go into the stores and they steal and then they sell it out here, you know?
Well, this is the latest grocery store leaving Baltimore. Eddie's in Mount Vernon, a longtime grocery store, closed that location last month. We spoke with the owners who say it's because of crime. A couple of weeks ago, we brought you the story of a woman in Highlandtown. She's closing her business after a string of armed robberies. Now, grocery store chain Giant is weighing a decision whether to shutter some of its stores because of crime.
It's to the point where some of the crime and aggression going on in some of these stores, they can't even get employees to come in because they don't feel safe. We do have one of the highest felony theft thresholds of all of the surrounding states. So Maryland really has become a target.
Baltimore County implementing a new policy to help relieve overcrowding in schools and address affordable housing shortages. The county has been limiting where new homes and apartments can be built because multiple schools are already over capacity, and more homes would mean more kids in areas where teachers are already stretched thin. But the county executive says with the schools now planning to redistrict, there's a unique opportunity to solve both issues.
We said that if a district has capacity in an adjacent area, a school feeder area, then that is open and that to development. So then the school board would just make an adjustment to the lines. That was one of the big changes. But we also were being very clear that we're limiting schools to 100% capacity. You can't develop if it gets over 100%. So we're ending school overcrowding. At the same time, we're opening things up to housing construction for our workforce.
And a quick correction, it is happening, the redistricting in Anne Arundel County, not Baltimore County. To see the full interview with the Anne Arundel County executive, just head to our website, foxbaltimore.com. Howard County Public Schools facing criticism for awarding an $81 million contract to a bus company out of California.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the move is raising concern among local companies who worry their school bus drivers will be forced off the road and out of a job.
Betrayed.
Yeah.
That is how Jared Defabal feels.
It hits pretty hard. It's taken a lot out of us.
Defabal owns Blue Horizons, a third-generation family-owned company that for 52 years has been driving Howard County students to and from school. But he's not sure if there will be a 53rd year.
I know all the contractors have felt a lot of betrayal.
Defabal has 50 school buses and more than 40 drivers.
Now take her in.
Last year, his company was one of about 24 contractors, mostly local, covering more than 400 bus routes for Howard County schools.
I know these streets better than anywhere else. I know the people, the students. We get a lot of the same students year after year, a lot of the same schools. We know the families.
But for the upcoming school year, Howard County entered into a contract with a new bus company called Zoom, based in California. Zoom was awarded a contract worth $81 million over 3 years to run 230 bus routes, about half the routes in Howard County. This press release, sent out by Zoom last month, touts that Zoom will provide Howard County with cleaner transportation, saying the company is green. Zoom's website says it's 100% carbon neutral with electric fleets. The website even warns how diesel buses emit notoriously noxious exhausts, saying more than 25 million children and thousands of drivers breathe this impure air on the way to and from school, which has a negative impact on health and academic performance. So Project Baltimore stopped by the lot where Zoom stores its buses. The dark screen over the fence does limit the view, but every bus we can see on this lot with Zoom written on the side is a diesel bus, complete with exhaust pipes and DEF only written on the fuel tank, which means diesel exhaust fluid. While we were there, this bus pulled out. We followed it. Like all the other buses we could see, it's powered by diesel fuel.
They don't have electric buses that I'm aware of.
Which is correct. But Zoom told Fox 45 News it hopes to have an all-electric bus fleet in Howard County within 5 years. So for now, Zoom's current diesel buses are similar to Defiball's diesel buses. But Zoom's come with a much larger price tag. Blue Horizons charges county taxpayers about $70,000 for a traditional bus route. Zoom is charging $98,000, according to Howard County Schools. Do you have any idea why the county signed this contract with Zoom?
I really don't. None of it makes sense to any of us.
So why would Howard County Schools enter into a massive contract with Zoom for diesel buses when it is already under contract with local companies that use similar buses for less? The district will not interview with us to explain, but they did provide a statement. The district confirmed the Zoom buses will be diesel, but added the company takes many actions to ensure carbon neutrality. As for the cost, Howard County says the Zoom contract, unlike local bus companies, includes transportation for summer school, special education, athletic events, and field trips. In other words, it includes more services. The statement went on to say there are no longer fuel and mileage adjustments in the new contracts, which often resulted in HCPSS paying much more than the budgeted amount. The district said it expects to need 503 total routes this upcoming school year and has contracts to cover more bus routes just in case. But with the addition of Zoom, Defiball worries there won't be enough work to keep his drivers on the road.
I think the county should rescind the contract with Zoom. They have the authority to do that. I mean, by all my accounts that I can tell, it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars extra for what they're doing now.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Less than half the country is confident votes will be counted properly in the next election. A look at a new poll showing just how skeptical the country has become of its own political systems.
Summer sales all week, but will consumers buy? I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. From Amazon Prime to Walmart, the sales on tap and the economic conditions that could lead to a buying bust or boom.
And if you'll be out and about this evening, maybe taking a trip to the pool. Looks like it's going to be nice and hot, but not too humid. Temperature around 91 degrees for commuting home at 5 and falling through the 80s back into the 70s, even 60s by tomorrow morning. I'm going to let you know how long the relatively comfortable weather lasts and when the real high heat and humidity builds back in with a vengeance. And my Weather Authority forecast.
Democrats apparently have more confidence that the 2024 presidential votes will be counted accurately than Republicans do. According to a recent poll, 22% of Republicans have a great deal of confidence in the 2024 vote count versus 46% who have no trust at all. On the flip side, 71% of Democrats have a lot of trust in the vote versus 8% who have no trust at all. Political parties aside, 44% of Americans trust the 2024 vote and 27% do not. Bank of America is punished for hurting its customers. Government investigators found that BOA illegally double-dipped on fees, withheld cash and points rewards on credit cards, and opened accounts without customer consent. The bank must pay $100 million to customers. It's also another $150 million in fines to government agencies. Inflation is forcing Americans to cut costs. The National Desk Angela Brown has the latest on how businesses and buyers are trying to take advantage of deals to keep from spending more money.
If you look at the latest consumer spending numbers, it tells the story, increasing by only 0.1% in May. And then there's this. A survey released in June from CNBC and Morning Consult found 92% of Americans are pulling back on spending. Former Toys R Us CEO Jerry Storch from Storch Advisors says we are entering a challenging time for consumers.
Consumers are simply spending less on things, on goods. And when you inflation adjust retail sales, it's been 8 or 9 straight months that sales have been negative.
The summer sales extravaganza could reignite consumers. Companies like Walmart, Target, and Victoria's Secret are dropping sales to compete with Amazon Prime starting today.
It's also going to be a good time to save on tech, things like laptops and TVs. And I'm seeing a lot of activity in the beauty category as well.
Smart shopping expert Trey Bodge says if you're looking to cut corners on back to school shopping, now may be the time.
Take time to look for savings. Use deal sites to earn cash back and coupons. One that I like for this is called Coupon Cabin because it has both cash back offers and coupons.
But when it comes to spending, what are Americans buying? We're spending more on services like healthcare and air travel, but less on goods like cars. Economists expect spending to slow in the coming months as Americans start to pay back their student loans. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Let's take a live look outside right now. The clouds cleared up a bit today. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers has the latest.
Yeah, and Kai, the first thing that we have to get through here is, of course, that code orange air quality alert. You don't see it looking too bad on our Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam, but there is some low-level ozone that is formed with some of the extra pollution as well as the extra sunshine, and that's going to be the case for not only the rest of today with the code orange air quality alert for the Baltimore metro area and in Arundel County, Annapolis area, but also probably into tomorrow as well. It might be another code orange day. So that means those folks that have pre-existing respiratory issues, the very young, the elderly, going to have to spend some extra time inside. Now we take a look outside again here in Towson. This is on our traffic camera network. Looks good here too. We've got 90 degrees with some partly to mostly sunny skies. The winds, this is key. This is helping us out with that drier air. Winds out of the west-northwest at 7 miles an hour. So the humidity is only at 34%, and the heat index, which is when you take the dew point or the measure of moisture in the air or the humidity and you add it into the temperature, is what it feels like, only 90 degrees as well. So that's good. 90 degrees, yes, it's hot. It's the beginning of another heat wave, but it's not the torching heat just yet. And that will unfortunately be coming. 89 degrees at Cockeysville, 85 at Bel Air. 91 at Westminster, 91 at Frederick, 90 at Stevensville. So actually kind of ho-hum temperatures for this time of year. Should be at about 89 on average, so it's not too far from where we should be. But this is the good news. This is not normal for this time of year. The heat index is also 90 here in Baltimore. Last hour is actually lower than the actual temperature because of that low measure of moisture. 87 is what it feels like at Bel Air and 90 at Westminster. So this is kind of that desert heat, not the Florida type heat that we are more used to around here. Now, off to the north, next to Weathermaker, getting ready to move in, but it's going to take some time until that gets here. So until then, it's building heat. It remains dry for today, for tonight, tomorrow, as well as into the Wednesday, Thursday early time frame. But then the humidity increases as this round of thunderstorms begins moving at us. Notice tomorrow it still stays to the north, But ahead of that rain, that's when it turns more humid on Thursday, and then we'll also introduce the risk of some showers and storms by late Thursday, and then again probably for the weekend with the heat and humidity roaring by then. Temperatures overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. Hey, may make another visit down into the 60s. Made it to 66 this morning. I think we'll be very close to that for tomorrow morning when you wake up for the morning commute. And then tomorrow afternoon, it's back to heat again. But again, with the temperature still, I mean, they're going to be hot, about 95 degrees. With the temperature still not accompanied by a whole lot of humidity, it won't be terrible. Thursday, though, the humidity does come back during the day, 95. Some late storms and the spot storms stay all the way through the weekend into early next week. And so does our heat wave with high temperatures in the low to mid-90s and those few thunderstorms in the afternoons.
Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the origins of the coronavirus, a continuous topic of discussion in Washington. Why some on Capitol Hill are arguing political cover-up. And battling a drought to keep your plants alive. What you need to know to keep your lawn and garden healthy. Well, now that we're in the heat of summer, many people are trying to keep up with growing their grass plants and getting rid of those weeds. Tom Rogers has more from experts on tips and tools to keep your lawn healthy.
Whether you need to cut it, trim it, mow it, or water it, the testers at Consumer Reports logged hours and acres every year evaluating lawn and garden products to help you pick the best for your yard, starting with lawnmowers.
It's easy to get distracted by the features that some of these units come with, but if you've got a quarter acre or less, the basic unit will cut your lawn and keep it looking great throughout the summer.
Go green and get a mower with top scores for even cutting, mulching, and handling with this electric battery-powered skill. But grass isn't the only thing growing between you and your perfectly landscaped yard. A good string trimmer can help keep weeds at bay and tidy up your outdoor space. Consumer Reports checks to see how well a string trimmer can handle tall grasses and weeds and how quickly and neatly each one can trim along a walkway. Its latest tests reveal electric battery-powered models are trimmers to beat.
The great thing about these battery platforms is that most manufacturers are offering a variety of products that work with the same battery.
The Ego string trimmer earns top scores across the board, and you can use the same battery and charger for Ego's electric hedge trimmers. But they can overheat quickly, meaning you will need to stop and let them cool off from time to time in extreme heat. Finally, to keep your lawn and plants hydrated, consider a smart hose timer.
Smart hose timers are basically just control on your phone. It helps with making sure that you're not overwatering your plants.
This Divo Smart Sprinkler is an affordable option that works well with Amazon Alexa and Google Home. Now all you have to do is remember to sit back and enjoy your yard this summer. A chainsaw can also come in handy when cleaning up the fallen branches and limbs after these summer storms. Consumer Reports also recommends the chainsaw in Ego's electric lawn tool lineup. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
All right, quick look at your upcoming weekend forecast as you work into Friday. Yep, there are those showers and thunderstorms once again nosing in with higher heat and humidity. And then on to Saturday during the afternoon, yep, scattered storms. And then Sunday, too, looks like maybe a spot storm here or there, but most of the activity may start sliding east a little bit. So, again, I'd count on at least some rain over the weekend. You're going to have some dry time, too, but the heat and humidity, it's going to be out there. It's going to feel like full-on July. Good time for the pool with 92 Friday, 93 Saturday, and 93 on Sunday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, our investigation into the Safe Streets program continues following communication failures during the Brooklyn mass shooting. The group now speaking out. Is the ongoing officer shortage in Baltimore playing a role in crime? We pressed the acting police commissioner on how the department is working to fill vacancies. Our community comes together to remember one of the young lives lost in the Brooklyn Day Block Party mass shooting. The calls for accountability as the investigation continues.
Plus, a group working to deter crime in Baltimore pointing to flaws within the Safe Streets program. Their questions surrounding communication failures.
And juveniles continue to remain at the center of crime in the crime crisis, both as suspects and victims. The new charging document shedding more light into that mass shooting.
Live From WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
What happened to the procedures and the protocols to shut this thing down?
It's been just over a week since the mass shooting at the Brooklyn Day block party, which killed 2 people and injured 28 others. And there are still unanswered questions. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. 18-year-old Alaya Gonzalez and 20-year-old Kailas Fagbemi both killed in that shooting. In an hour, the community will hold a vigil in remembrance.
Fox 45 News has also obtained new charging documents. A teenager has been arrested in connection to the case, but all of the charges he's facing are misdemeanors.
And there are also questions surrounding the lack of communication on the day of the shooting. Safe Streets workers were there earlier in the day, but did not inform police of any possible threats. Now the Guardian Angels, a group similar to Safe Streets, is speaking out about the flaws within the Safe Streets program.
We have extensive live team coverage tonight covering all of the angles. Mackenzie Frost has new information about Safe Streets' response to the shooting in our newsroom.
But we begin with Fox 45's Maxine Stryker and the public safety group calling on Safe Streets for more transparencies. Maxine?
Mary, the Guardian Angels are a long-standing and well-respected group working day in and day out to curb violence here in Baltimore. And tonight, they have a lot of questions about the mass shooting, a tragedy they believe could have been avoided if the right protocols were in place.
For nearly 2 decades,
We've been here 17 years, and we've been consistent with what we do and how we do it.
the Baltimore Guardian Angels, led by Marcus Strider Dent, have been making a difference in communities riddled with crime.
Whatever the community needs help with in empowering that community, that's what the Guardian Angels do.
The nonprofit, volunteer-driven organization builds safer communities through neighborhood patrols and violence intervention. After the mass shooting in Brooklyn,
everything can be controlled with the right leadership, the right management, and the right accountability. So everything that's happened because somebody failed to check the box and dot the I's.
Strider is speaking out on what he's calling a system failure, from City Hall to police to the city's flagship intervention program, Safe Streets.
You had a violence interception group that was at the thing. There was no communication.
Fox 45 confirmed 4 Safe Streets workers were at Brooklyn Day before the shooting occurred, de-escalating a number of conflicts. But we're told Monzi didn't relay any of the information to police, despite reports of numerous armed individuals.
You can't have people with guns and knives and stuff and not tell the police, especially when you are funded to help with this. That's what you're doing. You're the flagship group. How can you not make a phone call and say, hey, this is going on?
There's simply no excuse for the lack of communication, according to Strider, who says Safe Streets should have never left that night.
One thing about the Guardian Angels, if we see something, we're going to say something. We'll follow you from cuffs to court.
Fox 45 has been investigating the effectiveness of the Safe Streets program for years and the lack of transparency from the organizations and agencies operating it.
The program itself and how it operates, it's just not right. It's just not right, and it comes down from the top.
Monzi just announcing $5.1 million in federal relief money going to Catholic charities to run Safe Streets, the same nonprofit running the Brooklyn location, just blocks from Brooklyn homes. Meantime, the Guardian Angels and many other groups working to stop the bloodshed in Baltimore with limited resources.
Think about all the community leaders that are out here doing all the hard work that don't get half the recognition, half the appreciation. You give somebody that much money, you want the receipts. You want to know what it is they're doing. You want to know who it is you're hiring.
Strider says the city is in desperate need of new leadership and more transparency, or scenes like this in Brooklyn will just keep happening.
Rules don't fall into place until something bad happens.
Well, Monzi tells us they are now reviewing their policies since the mass shooting. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News has been pressing Safe Streets for answers about the response to the shooting for days. Tonight, we finally have a response. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been on top of the story for more than a week. Mackenzie, what is Safe Streets saying tonight?
Well, Mary, the gun violence prevention program not answering our questions directly, but we did get a statement passed on to us from Monzi. However, the statement actually comes from Catholic Charities. It says that 4 Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day event responding, which we knew. However, the statement from Catholic Charities says that the workers were mediating conflicts involving people that did not have weapons. That completely contradicts the statement that we previously got last week from Monzi, saying that those mediations did involve people with weapons. We're also learning a little bit more about the timeline. The Catholic Charity says that the Safe Streets workers showed up around 9 o'clock and left the event around 11:30. Once they heard about the shooting, the statement says that those Safe Streets workers came back to the event. However, we're still not clear as to when that communication policy will or if it will be changed. Last week, the city told us that it was being reviewed, and so far we've asked them multiple times specifically about that, and the city is refusing to answer that question. Kai?
And Mackenzie, you're also learning more about the teenager facing weapons charges stemming from the mass shooting. We understand you obtained some court documents today.
Yeah, Kai, that's right. These court documents detail what police believe were multiple shooting scenes within the Brooklyn Homes community. Going through the court documents, detectives suggest that the suspect, the 17-year-old who has now been arrested and facing charges, they say that when he pulled out what appears to be a weapon from the backpack, that's when they say it triggered multiple other shootings. Now, within the charging documents, they say that this 17-year-old was seen on various closed captioning video, standing in the same location where they say that he told them he was shot. There's also a few other details that we're still going back and forth with, but remember that the defense attorney argues that the weapon or this gun in question is really not a real weapon. He says that the gun that police say was real was really just a toy. Kai?
Yeah, that attorney was really ambiguous with you last week, Mackenzie, when you questioned him. So if the weapon hasn't been recovered, what else do police have linking the teen to this incident?
Yeah, that's a question that a lot of people have been asking, especially as you mentioned, the weapon itself hasn't been recovered. But within the court documents, we're learning that 6 bullet casings were found. According to police, it was in the same area, again, where the teen says he was shot. And what detectives described, those bullet casings were found in a pool of blood. Now, the detectives argue that those bullet casings could have been from the same weapon they believe was pulled out of the backpack by the 17-year-old. That's something that the defense attorney isn't buying.
They don't say that they came from whatever this young man possessed. They said that they came from this thing that the young man could have possessed. They said that these .223 caliber bullets could have come from a weapon similar to what the young man had, but the police don't have this. So what are they talking about?
Now, remember that no one has been arrested or charged in connection directly to the shooting or the homicide investigation. The 5 weapons charges that this 17-year-old is facing are all misdemeanors. It's unclear if this case will stay in the juvenile system or be moved to the adult criminal justice system. That's something that the state's attorney's office and the defense attorney will have to figure out and file motions in court. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. In just 2 days, members of Baltimore City Council will question Baltimore police and other agencies on last week's deadly mass shooting. Alexa Asheville has more on the biggest concern many leaders are voicing. She joins us live with the latest. Alexa.
What happened? Where was the breakdown in communication? And where does this investigation stand? All questions we expect to hear during Thursday's hearing. But some leaders are stressing Baltimore simply needs more police officers. Audio between 911 dispatch and Baltimore police illustrating what officers were up against before gunfire erupted during the annual Brooklyn Day block party.
Transform right here. Any other units?
A crowd of hundreds and just over a handful of officers reportedly on scene.
And we're coming. Foxes overhead. You're not going to the crowd by yourself.
A party of that size, a district cannot handle that themselves.
In the wake of the mass shooting, BPD staffing once again being called into question. The FOP tweeting just 7 officers were patrolling the Southern District at the time of the event. It's an issue Baltimore City Councilman Robert Stokes says he plans to bring up during Thursday's hearing, where leaders are slated to discuss the mass shooting.
It's not surprising to me if they say it was only 7.
It's in the Eastern District, it's in Western, it's in Northern, it's in Central. So until we have a better recruiting in the city, we're going to always have problems in terms of having enough officers to patrol.
The police staffing shortage, long-standing, and according to experts, a nationwide issue. BPD has beefed up incentives for officers, including offering the largest starting salary in the state providing funds to help with overtime. Still, BPD remains more than 500 officers short. Acting Commissioner Rich Worley addressing this reality just 3 weeks ago.
We're not getting 100 officers anytime soon. I think the next class has only got 20 or 22 in it. So we've got to do with what we have and ask our federal partners.
Governor Westmore admitting more resources and support are needed, which experts have said will likely be key in improving recruitment here in Baltimore.
We've got to lift up the profession of law enforcement. You know, we need to make sure that people know that we need to have a strong supply and a strong pipeline for people in law enforcement, making sure that we have local law enforcement that have the resources that they need.
This mass shooting reigniting the SOS.
We have to get more officers in this city.
In addition to the Baltimore Police Department, MONSE, Baltimore's Housing Authority, and DOT will all have representatives at Thursday's hearing. It begins at 5 p.m. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
We're following a trash truck fire that shut down a portion of I-95 for a period of time this afternoon. Crews are now cleaning up, and this is right by Canton. Now, crews have been able to knock out that fire for a bit of that trash truck. We are seeing traffic problems as a result. A section of southbound I-95 shut down right now. This is between Dundalk Avenue and exit 57. Again, the fire is out, but traffic problems remain on I-95 and around the Canton area because of this fire. We'll keep you updated.
Well, still ahead on Fox 45 News, the back and forth between BGE and city residents continues. Why they're accusing the company of destroying historical homes in Baltimore.
Did politics meddle with science when it came to investigating the origins of COVID-19? I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, Congress attempts to get answers.
And overnight tonight, actually pretty good looking. Low humidity continues, dropping down to about 70 by early tomorrow morning. I'll let you know when heat, humidity, and storms return. My Weather Authority forecast.
We're back right now with live pictures of Congress in Washington, D.C., where lawmakers are holding a hearing on the origins of the coronavirus.
The House Select Subcommittee on the pandemic holding that hearing today. In the spotlight, two researchers who've concluded nature is most likely responsible for the existence of COVID-19, not a lab leak.
But Republican lawmakers are skeptical, alleging a political cover-up. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins reports.
The truth. The whole truth.
During Tuesday's hearing on the origins of COVID-19, Republicans alleging politics may have meddled with the science.
We're examining whether government officials, regardless of who they are, unfairly and perhaps biasly tip the scales toward a preferred origin theory.
GOP committee leaders claiming a chain of emails during the early days of COVID-19 show a focus by top scientists to kill the lab leak theory, not because it wasn't true, but because it could shine a bad light on China and science.
Maybe to conceal or diminish the government's relationship with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or perhaps its funding of risky gain-of-function coronavirus research.
The scientists defending their work as honest, sticking with their original conclusion, favoring nature.
This remains the only scientifically supported theory for how the virus emerged.
Democrats calling this entire hearing political theater.
This isn't about building trust in public health and science, no. It's about tearing it down, about manufacturing a problem and manufacturing distrust to justify an extreme partisan agenda.
Tuesday's probe comes as lawmakers remain frustrated with the Biden administration's recently released report declassifying the government's knowledge on potential links between COVID-19 and the Wuhan lab. Former CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield among those disappointed with the report.
It really doesn't make any attempt to show what the intelligence groups used, what data they reviewed, what experts they brought in.
The Select Subcommittee has requested Dr. Anthony Fauci testify as they continue their investigation. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
We're following wicked weather right now around the northeastern part of the country. In Vermont, the storm that has continuously dumped 2 months of rain is finally moving out, but major flooding still remains. Now, no injuries or deaths have been reported in the state, but dozens of roads are closed, including Interstate 89 north of the state's capital, Montpelier. City officials are warning that dams could exceed capacity for the first time ever. Vermont's governor warned storm could be worse than Hurricane Irene.
This is an all-hands-on-deck response. We have not seen rainfall like this since Irene, and in some places it will surpass even that.
Well, according to the weather prediction, 7-day rainfall totals across much of the Northeast are at 300 to 500% of normal levels. Now, parts of Vermont, New York, Connecticut, even Pennsylvania all got at least a half a foot of rain.
Well, scientists say extreme rainfall and destructive flooding events are a more frequent reality now as the planet warms. The warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, which means storms can dump more precipitation. And pollutants like carbon dioxide and methane hold on to heat instead of radiating it away from the Earth into space. According to the National Weather Service, for every 1 degree Celsius the atmosphere warms, it holds roughly 7% more moisture.
Let's take a live look across Maryland tonight. We are seeing dry and hot conditions here. We're under a code orange air quality alert.
Well, let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers with a look at how this plays out as we head through the week and into the weekend.
Yeah.
Never too early to talk about that.
Yeah, and you know what, Kai and Mary, we are going to get into the weekend here in a minute. Won't be as nice as what we're seeing right now, but what is not nice, and actually this is part and parcel of pollution issue as well, just like some of the climate issues we're talking about. Code orange air quality alert is in effect for the rest of today, probably going to be for tomorrow as well for a good deal of the area, as we have what we call low-level ozone that's forming. We have the pollution from cars and industry that interacts with all that beating down sunshine and hot temperatures and creates ozone at the lower levels of the atmosphere, which is unsafe to breathe. So here in Baltimore City, surrounding Baltimore County and down into Arundel County. Those in the sensitive groups, the very young, the elderly, those with pre-existing respiratory issues have to spend some extra time inside, not only for the rest of today, but probably into, unfortunately, tomorrow as well. And this is actually when we had the low humidity. It's hot, but it doesn't feel that bad, and the mornings are especially nice, 90 right now. Our humidity is at 31%, actually makes the temperature feel like 88. So it feels a little bit cooler than it is. So that's a treat. 90 degrees here in Baltimore right now, 89 at Cockeysville, 84 at Bel Air, 90 at Westminster. So this is the beginning probably of another heat wave here for the next, say, additional 7 days. We could be 90 plus, but it won't be low humidity like this. Look at that heat index. Again, pretty wild to actually see the temperature higher than the heat index. Doesn't happen all that often around here, but with the dry humidity it did today, it's kind of like the desert a little bit. HG radar shows there is moisture out there, but it's pretty far away. These showers and thunderstorms will be moving south and east and eventually getting here, but probably going to take a couple of days until this cold front does so. And as it does so, it's going to increase the heat, the humidity, and also the shower and storm chances by Thursday all the way into the weekend. Now out in the tropics, haven't shown you this in a while because there hasn't been much going on. There's only one thing we're talking about near Bermuda. Low chance of development now, next 7 days, a 50% chance of development. But notice it's north of this kind of brown rind that's across the portion here of the Caribbean. This is usually actually where we see our tropical development this time of year. What this brown is Saharan dust, and through the end of the week, it's going to be thick. That pretty much puts the kibosh on hurricanes, so we will not be watching for anything developing out of the tropics anytime real soon. Overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, it looks like it's going to be nice and mild, comfortable temperatures to start into the 60s, rising up to 70s and 80s and eventually mid-90s tomorrow afternoon. The humidity comes back, blazing heat on Thursday, and that continues all the way through the weekend into next week with those typical pop-up shower and storms.
Jonathan, thank you. Still ahead, we're looking ahead to the 2024 presidential race. The new poll shedding light on voters' trust in ballot counting. Plus, Threads is now available for users across the nation, but will it prove to be more efficient than Twitter? We take a look at the differences and similarities.
It's tough to deal with. You don't think that you're only going to get 17 years.
A 17-year-old in Virginia killed after fireworks exploded. Hear from his parents on what went wrong. Well, right now, an investigation underway after an Amtrak train derailed this morning near Union Station in Washington. 2 cars derailed inside the tunnel. More than 200 passengers had to wait for 2.5 hours on the hot train while crews worked to get to them. An Amtrak employee was taken to the hospital for minor injuries. In Baltimore City, jury selection continues today in the trial of the man charged with murdering a pregnant Baltimore woman. Prosecutors say Michael Robertson, the father of Akia Eggleston's unborn child. Akia was 8 months pregnant when she didn't show up to her baby shower in 2017. Robertson was arrested in Michigan a year and a half ago and charged with her murder.
He was his own person. He knew who he was, and he was confident in that. And he didn't mind being, unique in his own way.
A Virginia family is mourning after their teenage son was killed over the 4th of July holiday. As we understand, the death was caused by fireworks. The incident happened just north of Richmond. Authorities were told the victim had a firework explode in their hand, was not breathing, and CPR was underway. Friends and neighbors who were there tell Nick's parents no one actually saw what happened. The family hoping to hear from more investigators soon.
I feel like we need some closure on from their perspective of the events, that might have taken place.
We've just been left wondering for over a week.
Nick would have been 18 next month and wanted to go skydiving to celebrate. His parents say they'll be going for him. According to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, 11 people were killed by fireworks last year. Well, still ahead on Fox 45 News at 5, more residents coming forward banding together against BGE, the new group getting involved in the ongoing controversy. Plus, more questions into the communication failures surrounding last weekend's mass shooting, how a stop snitching culture could have played a role. And concerns surrounding overcrowding in Arundel County schools top of mind, the legislation being backed by the county executive aimed at resolving that issue.
Fox 45 News is following three big stories for you tonight at 5:30.
Students may be out of school for the summer, but the issues within some Arundel County schools still top of mind for leaders. We look at the connection between overcrowding in schools and the housing crisis.
And our coverage into last weekend's mass shooting in Brooklyn continues as there are still no charges for the shooting itself. We hear from a law enforcement expert on what this says about the culture of crime in Baltimore.
Plus, the legal battle between Baltimore City residents and BGE heating up as calls for accountability are growing louder.
BG&E is operating like a Baltimore City gang, like a cartel that thinks that the rules don't apply to them.
Well, we begin there. That charge today from the attorney representing hundreds of Baltimore City residents in a class action lawsuit against BGE.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live right now as another arm of city government is now forced to address the controversial issue of those external and controversial gas regulators. Amy?
Yeah, Mary Kai, whether it's due to all the media attention or the legal fight that's playing out right now, every few days it does seem like a new group is joining in on this debate. Today, the homeowners suing BGE, urging Baltimore's Historic Preservation Board to step in and halt this utility work in historic neighborhoods.
Speaking out again today.
I think BG&E is finally learning that when the public organizes and the public pays attention, thanks to all of you, that there are consequences for their actions.
As pressure and attention mounts in the ongoing battle between Baltimore residents and BGE. BGE's work to install thousands of external gas regulators, which the utility company says is to improve customer and community safety, right now halted by a court injunction as a class action lawsuit plays out.
Now we're talking about them forcefully installing equipment that is not required by law.
While those hundreds of residents suing BGE argue the utility work for outside gas meters lacks transparency, they also argue the construction crews are boring holes into Baltimore's historic marble, limestone, and brick.
Of course, we know what the historic preservation argument is. These things detract from the historic character.
Today, CHAP, Baltimore City's Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, taking up this issue, appearing to consider this controversial subject for the first time since early 2022.
I have probably received more than 100 to 200 emails.
CHAP's executive director said he's heard from hundreds of residents who oppose this BGE utility work. But today, this roundtable said it's up to the Maryland Public Service Commission, which regulates BGE, to decide how safety factors into this debate about gas regulators. As CHAP said its jurisdiction is to protect and advocate for the historic character in Baltimore, saying it'll schedule a public hearing to decide how to move forward and protect historic homes and neighborhoods.
We aren't in charge of safety, but I think that we do have the ability to support the public discourse on this, right? About elevating, getting BGE to the table in these historic districts.
Meanwhile, an email also shared with Fox 45 News dated last week appears to show BGE asking for authorization to proceed with this utility work. A schematic shared for several streets in Fells Point.
I think BG&E unfortunately has shown its true colors. They talk out of both sides of their mouth.
Today, Fox 45 News asked BGE why it was asking for approval to move forward with installing exterior regulators, as the company had also just said it would comply with a judge's order halting that work.
And in a statement this afternoon, BGE said it's, quote, in full compliance with that temporary restraining order at this time. We're only performing gas work involving external regulators in certain circumstances, like those new businesses where external regulators are required by the state law, when a customer voluntarily consents to an external regulator, and commercial installations. They continued saying, quote, this work is not prohibited by the terms of the TRO and is why we are continuing our process in those situations. And a few dates to share as this debate over gas regulators only continues in Baltimore. Tomorrow evening, July 12th, Baltimore City Council will hold a public hearing on this issue. August 15th, the Maryland Public Service Commission, which regulates BGE, will hold its own hearing about gas regulators. And September 5th, that's when the class action lawsuit will be back in front of a judge. Now, right now, we don't know when CHAP, that's the city's Commission for Historic Preservation, will hold its public hearing. They said they hope to get it on the calendar in about 30 days. In Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Trust Fox 45 News to keep you updated in this fight between BGE and Baltimore residents. You can get the latest on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
Well, it has been over a week since one of Baltimore's largest mass shootings at the Brooklyn Day block party. 2 people were killed, 28 others injured, and there is still currently a $28,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest. Now, following the incident, Fox 45 News spoke with the grandmother of one of the victims who believes the incident could have been completely avoided.
If they had police presence, even 2 cars, even 2 police cars, if they were there, I'm almost certain this wouldn't happen. Whoever in charge of the police force dropped the ball and they're making excuses, and I'm not buying it.
Well, as of tonight, no charges have been made or no arrests have been made in the shooting. There is 1 arrest, but not related to the shooting. Fox 45's Megan Gillen has more on the stop snitching culture in Baltimore City and how it could be playing into the ongoing violence.
It's been more than a week now since 2 people were killed, 28 others injured in the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. And as of now, investigators have yet to charge anyone with the actual shooting. With roughly 1,000 people said to have been at this event, law enforcement expert Mari Richards weighing in on how it's possible that there aren't more leads. Is this a stop snitching issue, as we've seen here in Baltimore, or is this a policing issue and detective work?
No, I'm afraid the biggest problem is the stop snitching issue. And what makes it so much worse is that we have these Safe Street workers who are paid by Baltimore taxpayers who are setting these example of not cooperating with the police.
There could be a lot of information that police are not telling us. Obviously, an active investigation. In your experience, could they know a lot more than what's being revealed?
It's definitely possible they're going to, wait until they have an entire case. But I'm telling you, Megan, you got to go to the people who know. And the Safe Street workers knew in about 5 minutes all the people involved.
We do know that Baltimore City Council is set to hold a hearing Thursday on police response to this mass shooting. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Turning to counties under pressure, overcrowding in Arundel County schools is top of the mind for leadership there. Fox 45's Patrice Sanders has more on legislation meant to curb the issue.
In Arundel County, school overcrowding and housing go hand in hand. Where schools are over capacity, developing new housing is limited as a result. New legislation recently passed focuses on that issue, and according to Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, will have a much needed impact.
We have laws on the books, as do most counties, that say that if we don't have enough school capacity in our schools, we limit new housing construction because we don't want new kids on top of the ones that are there. So we had more than half of our county closed to development of housing at a time we have a housing shortage. And it was the parts of our county that we say we want to do smart growth, transit-oriented development. So we needed to make some changes.
And what does this legislation accomplish?
Well, first of all, the timing is good because the school board is finally going to redistrict. We have, believe it or not, 16,000 unutilized seats in our whole system, but we have schools at about 140 and 50% capacity. So they needed to reorganize, which is now they're doing. But looking into the future, we wanted to open these areas to development that are targeted for development. So we said that if a district has capacity in an adjacent area, a school feeder area, then that is open and that to development.
Now, he also says that if the school board keeps up with redistricting when needed in the future, it would prevent the county from being in this same situation again. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Instagram's new Twitter rival app Threads is now the fastest growing app in the world. The new social media app has signed up more than 100 million users in less than 5 days, breaking a record set by that ChatGPT app. Tom Rogers explains the big difference between Twitter and Threads.
Social media giants see a major opening to combat Twitter's changes as Mark Zuckerberg's company Meta premieres Threads to its 3 billion plus users. But what is Threads, and is it any different than Twitter? Author, journalist, and founder of Celebrity Cafe, Dominic Mazzaradino, says Threads has a slightly broader appeal.
The only difference here is emotional in that people said, I don't like this and I like that instead right now. And there's a lot of, especially in this sad political world, there's a lot of people taking sides, and it's let's go from this side of the ring to that side of the ring at this point.
It seems, though, you know, when you look at it, you're like, Facebook is now, as my kids say, is for old people. Instagram is the friendlier place to be. There's so many others, you know, Snapchat, all the other ones that are out there. But they say Twitter is like for angry users. Do you think Threads is kind of like setting up that same format? I mean, with 400 characters?
I think that there's always communities. I mean, like you said, you can go Pinterest or Parler or Truth Social, but Reddit, there's all these communities. And the answer to that is we'll wait and see. The moderation is key, and moderation is a very slippery slope in terms of First Amendment rights and free speech. You want to have freedom, but not too much. So, but communities seem to get find their place.
When I asked him about if Meta would fall under a social media monopoly that Congress would have to intervene, Mazzaradino said, look at Google first, pointing out while Meta is huge and owns much of social media activity, Google holds much more of a monopoly on search and software use, and Congress has not tried to break Google up. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
Coming up after the break, former President Trump wants to delay his trial for mishandling classified documents. Why he's pointing to the 2024 presidential election.
New study looking at opioids versus over-the-counter pain relievers when it comes to treating pain. I'm Liz Bonus. The results might surprise you. It is just ahead.
And if you're going to be doing some grilling tonight, it's still going to be kind of hot, but at least you will not be dealing with humidity. Temperature at 90 at 6, 89 at 7, and back finally into the 70s by about 10 p.m. tonight. Could even have some 60s overnight, but we've got some now code red air quality alerts going into effect for tomorrow. I'll let you know where. Coming up, breaking in my Weather Authority forecast.